Zoe Delahunty-Light, aka Girl. It seems like Christmas has come early for you because you've been playing God of War Ragnarok around the clock.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I've been playing so much of it. I cannot believe it's actually on my PS5 as we speak.
I know, you've been waiting for this moment for ages.
For years, Ian.
Years. So hopefully it's lived up to your expectations. Is it like a nice big long chunky game like the first one? Bigger, longer? What's it like?
There is enough content in God of War Ragnarok for 2 games. Easily.
Holy moly.
So as a reviewer, that makes me bleed from my eyes because it means I have to play a lot of it, the entire thing. But it is insane value for money. Like, the amount of content in God of War Ragnarok is genuinely unbelievable. Whereas the first game was this tight narrative, really refined experience that came in, did what it wanted to do, and then left, and I think is almost perfect, essentially. God of War Ragnarok is maybe a tiny bit bloated, but there's so much in there to do as the player that I really can't hold it against it too much. Like, there's loads more realms, a ton more characters, more depth to the combat. This is going to be spoiler free, so I won't say obviously exactly what happens, but you don't just play as Kratos, which is really cool. But yeah, it is absolutely massive, Ian.
So, like you said, it was bloated. Is it bloated in a good way? I'm hoping, like side quests that aren't just paint by numbers, collect 'em up things and stuff like that. Is it bloated by like interesting stuff and boring stuff, or just interesting stuff? Or?
No, just interesting stuff. It's just there's a lot to do in it, and they move pretty quickly from one main story plot point to the other, where I would have personally liked it to spend a bit more time building up before these big things happen, but the side quests and stuff, there aren't too many of them. They're called favours in God of War Ragnarok. So what that means is that you'll have like a realm and there'll be maybe like 3 favours in it, which like genuinely take quite a fair amount of time to do. But what you can definitely tell is that there's not really a lot of time in between main story beats, and the main story quests themselves are really well done, to be honest. Like, they take a really long time to do, which is why I almost want to call it bloated, but I mean, in an era where games cost like 70 quid or something, I really can't hold it against it, because you are genuinely getting quite a lot of value for money as the consumer, which I think is fantastic.
That's fair. It sounds like a massive game. What I'm wondering, like, because I've played about half of the first one, it was very linear. Is this one with all the favours and stuff, is it a bit more open world?
It's definitely a lot more open world. It's not a game I would call open world, but there's definitely a lot more to do. There's the usual collectibles and exploring and finding stuff that you can sell to Brock and Sindri. The one other thing that I would kind of hold against God of War Ragnarok is, although the story is good, there's a lot of retconning that takes place, which I don't particularly like, but it's kind of like for the greater good, you know? Like,
is that retconning from the God of War 2016 or whenever it was? Or
2018.
The really old ones?
Oh, no, not from the old ones. So there's actually like quite a few callbacks to Kratos' time in Sparta and in the original Grecian God of War, which is really cool. But what I mean is, like, from the first game, there's quite a few things where they kind of... Hang on, how do I say this nicely? There's quite a few things where they'll like say, oh yeah, I did this thing, and then it completely negates a thing that happened in the first game, and this is me trying to keep it spoiler free.
Mysterious, I appreciate the spoiler free stuff.
And there's also stuff which is like fairly big, which again I can't say, and they'd be like, oh no, this thing happened and now we can do that. And it's kind of a bit like, oh no, that's fine that you can do that now, but also could you not come up with a better reason for being able to do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Oh, that's fine. You don't have to go into too much detail.
I'm not going to. No. Yeah.
But you did mention a couple of characters there. Is there a much larger cast this time around? Or
oh my god, there are so many characters. Almost too many, maybe too many, but the performances are fantastic from every single performer, but there are a lot more characters this time around. One of the things that made the first game so like perfect in my eyes was that they had a core cast of characters which they explored really deeply. And in Ragnarok, they have, you know, some of the main characters from the first game as well, but they have a ton of added characters. And it just feels like they could have maybe whittled down the amount of characters they had by maybe even just like 2 or 3, and then spent more time exploring old characters and some of the newer, more interesting characters. But I love what they've done with Freya, for example. I won't say what they've done with her, but she's in the game, a decent amount, which is really cool. And Tyr, who we saw in one of the initial trailers, he's really interesting to kind of experience and be around. But it does feel like, to be honest, they're like, oh my god, we have so many ideas, and they didn't pick just like half of them. They were like, let's do all of them.
Let's get them all in there.
Yeah, which is why it's so big and there's so many characters. But yet again, for a game that cost like 70 quid, if I was paying that much for it, Sony gave me a code, thank you very much, Sony, I'd be thrilled because there's just so much more to do and so many people to meet.
Fair enough. One of the characters you didn't mention there is one that probably got the most attention when he was revealed, and that was Thor. How's Thor in this?
His performance is incredible. His performance is amazing. Not only am I incredibly attracted to him, the gravitas of his performance is like so multi-layered. I really love the scenes with him. He's obviously like quite a scary figure, but what I love about him is he's not played in the way that you'd expect him to be played, and that goes for like at least 2 other characters I can think of who I won't name because their very existence is spoiler territory. But what I would say is, if you're going to go and play God of War Ragnarok, which I absolutely think you should do, prepare for the unexpected.
And prepare for Daddy Thor.
Prepare for Daddy Thor. Oh god, I love him so much. But prepare for what you think is going to happen, and characters, how you think they're going to behave. That's not what's going to happen. You can definitely tell that Sony Santa Monica was like, we know people are going to think this character is going to be like this, so we're going to make him exactly the opposite. And it's done to incredible effect, where you're genuinely, as the player, being like, have I got all of this wrong? Like, how can, Ragnarok end up happening if this is what this person is like, etc., etc.?
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Oh, very interesting. Well, another thing I'm interested in learning about, because it played a big part in the original game, or the 2018 game anyway. Actually, the original games. I'm just chatting shit now. The combat. How is it? Is it just as good as the original?
It's really good, yeah. What I love about the combat is they've obviously kept the main mechanics of the first game with, light, heavy attacks. You have your light runic attacks and your heavy runic attacks and stuff, and skill tree is very similar, but they add a lot of little things in there. So you now have these abilities which you can trigger by pressing L1 and circle, where you basically add a buff to your next 10 seconds of attacks. And it just feels like they've really paid attention to how combat feels, and although combat in the first game was really good, it feels so fluid and smooth, and you can tell they're really pushing you to kind of inhabit Kratos. So for example, parries are a much bigger deal this time around, and there's a lot more skills based around when you parry, making it not only feel good, but obviously have have a weighty impact on the combat. So you're very much trying to aim for those more precise combat movements than just kind of wailing in as Kratos. With some other characters you'll be playing apart from Kratos, their combat is really unique as well, which I really enjoy.
Nice.
One of the bad things about combat is, oh my god, your companions do not shut the fuck up with hints. And it gets on my tits massively. I don't mind occasionally giving a hint and just being like, oh, what's that thing over there? But Atreus and Mimir and some other people who end up accompanying you do not shut up. To the extent that I went into the settings and was trying to see if it was something I could turn off because it was so irritating.
Oh, Jesus.
Exactly. Not only just if you see a chest that's covered in mushrooms, it's obvious you can't unlock that right now, but Mimir will be like, oh, brother, I don't think that's something you can do right now. And it's like, yeah, no shit, Mimir, I know. I'm just looking at it.
So less God of War and more, oh God, shut up.
Literally, oh my God. And then when you're facing a puzzle, look, I'm not the smartest person here. It takes me a little while to figure out puzzles sometimes. But Atreus or Mimir will literally drip feed you the solution incredibly quickly, so it becomes really annoying because you're like, look, just give me 2 minutes to figure out what to do here. I'm not that dumb, I can do it, I promise. That's one of the major drawbacks of the game in my opinion, and unfortunately because it happens so often, and it happens in combat too,
Yikes.
It really gets on your nerves. One of the things I loved about the first game is when Kratos dies, I mean, unless you're some incredible MLG gamer who's never died in God of War. When Kratos dies, you can hear Atreus or Mimir yell out, and it sounds like they're like, oh my god, he's dead! They're obviously really upset. But in God of War Ragnarok, you just have Mimir yelling oh no, that was a bad one. They're not distraught that you've just died. They just keep commenting incessantly on the combat itself. And even when you're doing something, a character will be like, no, go closer, you've got to get up in their face. And it's I know, I'm just healing and getting some distance. And I think that's one of the issues people are going to have with God of War Ragnarok is because the combat on one hand is so fluid and well considered and fun, it's very much kind of almost ruined a little bit by this incessant commentary from the other characters, because you just want to be in the moment and enjoying it. You don't want Atreus or Mimir or other character insert here like consistently commenting on how you're doing or what you should be doing or the fact that you've just died or that you're low health or that, just shut up and let me kill things.
Yeah, let me smash things. And on the subject of smashing things, one of the things I kind of found a little bit boring about the original one is that there wasn't much variety in the enemies that you fought, like the standard normal ones. Is there a bit more variety to the enemies this time around?
100%.
Or are they still kind of...
Definitely. So there's the same kind of enemies from the first game. You have like Draugr and stuff.
The ones that spurt orange when you kill them.
Yes, yep, spurt orange when you kill them. You still have Hellwalkers, which are the like ice blue people. But this time around you have raiders are more of a thing, so like actual humanoid enemies. And then each realm has its own wildlife, which you kind of only experience in that realm, which is cool. But yeah, there's a really decent range in enemies, and what I definitely think is worth pointing out is God of War Ragnarok has a lot of mini-bosses. A fair amount of when it's like, you may never run into an enemy like this again, but this fight is going to be hard. And I think that's a really good way to kind of mix up the combat a bit more, so you're not just endlessly fighting like waves of trolls or wolves or wolven or whatever. You're actually coming up against a unique mini-boss that then kind of like puts the stamp of like, okay, you've ended this mini section here. And the mini-bosses are really cool. Like, their attacks are well designed, the character design is fantastic. They force you to like evade and block and, dip and dodge and use Blades of Chaos and the Leviathan axe and stuff. It really feels like the combat designers in God of War Ragnarok just had loads of fun with it and were just like, let's make sure they have to fight this type of enemy and use all these different skills that they've been taught.
Oh, amazing. Combat seems pretty good then, but how about like the overall like story and character motivations and stuff like that? Does it live up to, because obviously you were a huge fan of 2018's God of War. Has it been disappointing in any way, or does it live up to the hype?
Yeah, so I love God of War 2018 story so much, some of you may not know this, that I actually have a tattoo. I have Atreus' tattoo on my arm because I love it so much. And what is a little bit disappointing about God of War Ragnarok is it does feel like they've rushed some quite big story points, and they've not explained characters' motivations enough for you to be like, okay, I see where you're coming from and I understand why you're doing this thing that you're doing. Kratos, I will not hear anything bad against him. I love him. He's really opened up in this one. He's not chatty by any means, but he's more talkative than he was in the first game. And you can tell that's because he spent years with Atreus and Mimir, like, gradually get rid of toxic masculinity and like actually talking about how he feels and how worried he is about Atreus and stuff. And he even calls Mimir brother at one point, which made my heart melt because that's so sweet, coming from Kratos especially. And Kratos opens up about his time in Greece, and Deimos, and even Calliope gets mentioned a couple of times, which is his daughter who he murdered.
Oh, nice. Dad.
It's really good to see Kratos opening up about his past in a way that feels very fitting for the character. Like, he's not pouring out his soul, but he's trying to make a character understand where he's coming from as a father, and I love how they did that. I will say that Atreus pisses me off quite a lot in the game. I won't say why, but there are certain things he does where I don't think it's explained very well why his character would do that. Although, like, I understand the reason, it's like I want to hear him kind of talk about it a bit more and, like, come to that conclusion a bit more slowly rather than really fast. And then other characters like Angerboda is in it. She was in the trailer. She's really cool. I love her. She's got a very distinctive combat style, which you'll see when you play the game, which I won't spoil here. But it does feel like the stuff that happens with her in particular is quite rushed as well, where it's that kind of topic where I just wish they had explored it more and kind of spent more time with her and exploring what she's going through and stuff. So I would say the story is a bit rushed, but that's only because there's so much content in God of War. Like, there's definitely enough for 2 games that I just think they wanted to fit all of it in, and that kind of meant they sacrificed some pacing.
How long do you think it would take, or how long does it take to get through the main campaign, the whole story?
So if you're playing the main story and you do all the favours, it takes around 32 to 35 hours to complete. But then once you've completed the game, there's more favours that open up, there's more areas of the world you can do, and you can obviously keep exploring as well, so you don't have to...
Oh, that's cool.
You're done once it ends, and you can go back and explore the realms and find collectibles and stuff. So, like, for completionists, definitely at least 60 hours, if not more. Which is why I say it's such good value for money. Like, there's so much content in there. And in this day and age when games are this expensive, that's what you should be getting as a consumer, I think. You should be getting your money's worth, because that's almost 100 quid. Like, you want to make sure you can spend as much time with it as possible.
Totally. Finally, let's get down to business here, and let's find out, is God of War Ragnarok Kratos or Hatos?
It's Kratos.
Yay!
It's Kratos. It is really good. I do have my reservations about it. I don't think the story is as good as the first game, but it is fantastic fun to play. The combat is great. The characters are really interesting to get to know. The different realms as well are so unique and beautiful. Like, it looks stunning. It's definitely a game which I would heartily recommend anyone dropping money on, because you'll be playing it for a really long time and there's so much you can do in it. So yeah, Kratos.
Wonderful. Kratos. Excellent. Well, Viewingtons, I hope you enjoyed this little review chat. If you want more God of War Ragnarok stuff, I'm pretty sure, Zoe, you are working on plenty more stuff for the channel. We're going to be God of War Ragnarok centric for a while.
Yes, I'm going to be working on, we've got some tips coming, I've got some story explain stuff coming for the main characters, maybe some little secrets. So yeah, if you want to know more about God of War Ragnarok and you want to engross yourself in that Nordic world and all the viscera and fluid it comes with, mainly blood, then make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out for my God of War Ragnarok videos. And you can also find me on Twitter at Zoe_Dells, where I'll be tweeting about them. And Ian, you're on Twitter as well.
That's correct, I am, but I won't be tweeting about God of War Ragnarok.
No, but you'll be retweeting me if you're very nice.
I'm always nice.
Always
yes,
nice.
I will. Yes, at Ian Higton on Twitter. So, yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Like and subscribe for Viscera, and we'll see you soon here on Eurogamer. Oh, and there's some more God of War stuff that Zoe's done previously on screen to click on right now.
Yes, there is, right now. Good point.
Lovely. Oh, that one. I especially like that one.
Delicious.
So much
Bye,
Viscera.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.